Hey everybody, this is David. You're listening to the Plant Medicine for PTSD podcast, and I'm super stoked that you're here. Got a pretty cool episode for you today. My guest on this one is a gentleman named Scott Oikle, who is an active duty member of the Canadian Armed Forces. Most of the people that we speak with are retired, either veterans, like retired military folks, or retired first responders. So this was an interesting change of pace talking to him, although he was a little bit handcuffed, we could say, in what he would and would not talk about and what kinds of personal opinions he would get into. Important to note, nothing that he says is representative of the Canadian Armed Forces, obviously, but also Scott didn't want to jeopardize his career. He's coming up on retirement, didn't want to say anything out of line that would get him in trouble with the powers that be. So John has written a book called The Last Rotation: Afghanistan, a War Diary, and it is exactly that. It is about, I'm sorry, it's based on a diary that he kept, a journal that he kept during his time in Afghanistan, where he was among the last rotation of Canadian soldiers to actually serve over there before the Canadian military pulled out, which was actually a while before the American military pulled out, which I didn't really know about until pretty recently. Scott did some very interesting work over there that I think left him with some really unique perspectives on the challenges that soldiers faced overseas, some of the things that were handled well and not so well by the administrations of both the Canadian and American governments, and how that has affected soldiers now that they're home. He's actually a really great example of proactively getting the care that you need. So he's someone who actually raised his hand and said, "Hey, I need some help. I have PTSD." He got the help that he needed and was able to actually keep his job, which I feel like is fairly rare. I speak with a lot of guys who actually, spoke up and said they needed help, and they ended up getting forcibly medically retired. So I think there's a lot to learn from how Scott navigated everything during his period of actually seeking this help. There's a lot to learn from his perspectives, and it's really awesome that he's in somewhat of a leadership position. I'm only tentative when I say that because, as you'll hear, he has a unique posting right now where he's kind of riding out the rest of his career. But either way, he is in a leadership position to be able to help guys underneath him get the help that they also need. So Scott's doing some awesome stuff here at the end of his career. I'm very excited to share this conversation with you guys, and I would really encourage you to check out everything Scott is up to and to pick up a copy of his book. So with all of that said, let's get into this episode. Thank you very much for being here. Now, Scott, we were just talking about your background there.
Yep.
With I get is that called a shadow box? Is that the
Yep.
the technical term? Okay.
Yeah.
So you said
Yes.
you've
Yeah.
got some of your things, and then what else is that from your father or your grandfather? Did you say?
So yeah, my stuff's. I don't know the way you're looking at it, but my stuff's in the center, and then on, I guess it's my right here would be my grandfather's, and then on the other side is my great grandfather's war medals from World War II.
Damn, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting because I'm an American, right? And I think I was sharing with you, for some reason, a huge number of our clients are actually Canadians also at this point.
Right.
But I don't think that the average American has any conception that the Canadian military has been extremely active in every war that the American military has also been in.
Right.
And I think in World War II, there was like a stereotype among the Germans that like the Canadians were especially fearsome fighters or something like that. And I know
Yeah.
you guys make a lot of jokes about the Geneva checklist or the Geneva suggestions.
Yeah, Geneva suggestions. Yeah, not the conventions, but yeah, you're right. Yeah, they do. Yeah, I think
And so,
I think the George Lucas coined the term stormtroopers from the Germans. That's what they used to call the Canadian soldiers, stormtroopers or whatever back in the day. I guess. I think that's
interesting.
probably where he got it from. That doesn't necessarily mean we're bad guys, I don't think, and we don't wear the funky white helmets. But yeah, they're notoriously crazy. I think the Canadian soldiers were at one point, and they still are today, I guess. But,
Yeah, I
yeah,
think so, man.
yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's interesting actually. This is a whole other fucking can of worms that we can open if you want to. Just yesterday in our men's group, we were talking about mefloquine, and
Okay.
the numbers of Canadians that have been affected by that.
Right.
Uh, I don't know if that's something you want to wade into since you're still actively serving in the Canadian military, so we don't want to stir too many fucking
Right.
pots over there, get your
Right.
career in trouble. Um, we can sidestep. I'll edit that out if you want to, Scott, because I know that's a very contentious fucking idea in
Well,
the
you know
Canadian
what though?
military.
There's a lot of guys using that kind of stuff, especially the veterans, right? You know, the guys that got PTSD and they're struggling or whatever, and there's a lot of issues. You know that marijuana is now legalized in Canada, so you know, fill your boots if you're not an air traffic controller like me working or special ops or any of those guys. They're not doing any of that doping sort of stuff before they're working or anything. That's for sure, but. I know, actually, we had a veterans coffee today with a bunch of vets in here. We host once a month. And, you know, there's guys that come in, they're using a lot. And I know Veterans Affairs Canada, they support it and they pay for it and they give the troops whatever they need that way to get through each and every day. So to me, I think sometimes it might be a bit excessive.
I agree.
But, you know, I'm not the guy that's in need of any of that kind of help, I guess, that way right now. So. Anyway, yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, we'll get to the help that you did get because I know there's
Yeah.
it's a bit of an interesting example, honestly, that you were able to get the help that you needed coming home from deployment while
Yeah.
still maintaining your job, which
Right.
is not the norm for the majority of guys that I actually talk to.
Right.
So a little bit more background on you first, though. So
Sure.
how long have you been serving for? Because I know you're coming up towards the tail end of your career. So what's that
Yeah.
been like? How long have you been on the force?
I joined in '91. I spent 3 years in the Army, in the artillery, actually, doing hardcore Army shit for, you know, the first 3 years of my career. And then actually I got out for about 18 months. I released and then I rejoined as a combat lineman, working with, you know, infantry battalions. I worked with the special forces a little bit. We did a lot of that kind of, you know, telecommunications and lineman sort of stuff. But it was what we call, there's a few zero trades or combat trades in the Canadian Armed Forces. And being a lineman, artillery, infantry, armored, engineers, those kind of guys are all hard zero Army trades. So I wanted some more of that. So when I rejoined, I joined as a lineman. And I did that until about, I guess, 2002, 2003. And I was offered an opportunity to take my commission or become an officer. So I thought, yeah, I'm going to be a fighter jock. I'm going to fly planes. But I had a brain tumor in '98, and they'd taken it out, and I was fine. But I guess the pilot guys in Toronto at the time said, hey, you're not flying shit. So we don't want your head to explode at 33,000 feet, so pick a different trade. So I chose a trade as an air traffic controller. So that's what I had done for a long time until I went to Afghanistan, basically. So, and then I was in operations for a long time. But in the Canadian Forces, you, regardless of the jobs that you're doing, you always maintain a special occupation. So my occupation since 2007 has been as an air traffic controller, and I still am today. I'm not licensed anymore. I couldn't go in a tower, you know, and do any of that kind of stuff yet without some recertification. But I worked in ops. I worked at our RMC, the Royal Military College of Canada here, which is your equivalent is West Point. So I worked there, molding the minds of the young kids coming through there. So I did that for a while. I worked as a deputy commanding officer at 1 headquarters, which is the tactical aviation sort of guys, all helos, all helicopters, the Chinook and the Griffin. And then, yeah, as you said, my career's winding down. So after 32, 33 years, I found this job here at the museum where I can, you know, study some history and, you know, learn a little bit more about the troops, the times, and the technology, and finish writing my book and doing things like that. So that's kind of where I sit today. So I don't know what's going to happen next, but wait and see.
Yeah, we'll get into the book stuff in a second. I love that you're drinking Tim Hortons. That's the most Canadian thing you
Yeah,
can
man,
possibly
sorry,
be
that's
doing
probably
right
rude.
now. And then saying sorry.
Sorry, yeah.
afterwards.
Yeah. Typical Canadian. Yeah.
What did you say about what did you call it, like a hard zero trade or something like that, being a line? What does that mean?
So back in the day, any of the MOSIDs or your military occupational identification numbers for whatever trade you are.
Yeah.
If it was like a hard army, like combat trade or a combat job, it all started with a zero. So as a lineman, you'd be like 052 was the trade number. And if you were infantry, it was 03, whatever they were, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what it meant. Basically, frontline troops is what it rolls down to. So,
Got it. Okay.
yeah.
It's interesting. Inside of our program, we have now had 3 people who are all signalers.
Yep.
I believe you call them Jimmies, which I don't have any idea why.
Yep.
But they joke about their signaler trauma. Just like it's just
Yeah.
weird that like inside of our little slice of veterans, we've had like so many people with the same occupation. It's weird.
It is
how that
true.
works out.
Yeah, we used to shit out rat ops, which were Jimmys. You know, it was the running joke when you were a lineman, right? You know, because there was always this divide. Because I wore a Jimmy on my cap badge, you know, on my beret or whatever, as a lineman, and so did the rat ops or the sig ops, the guys that you're talking about. So, yeah, they have a long history, obviously, in the CAF, and they do a lot of good. But we used to tease them a lot because they weren't hard army, you know. So there was always that kind of us versus them sort of shit, right? But yeah,
Yeah, man. You tell that to my buddy Toby, who got fucking blown up on a hillside in Afghanistan. Tell him he's not a hard army guy, you know.
no, I wouldn't want to tell Toby that. No, he'd probably kick my ass. Yeah,
No, he's happy now. He wouldn't kick anyone.
that's good. That's good.
He's a happy camper.
Yeah.
All right. So you deployed to Afghanistan, correct?
Yeah.
In 2011-ish, 2010, 2011.
2011. Yeah.
Okay. And you told me you were working as an air traffic controller there, right?
No, I was the senior operations officer in charge of the base operations center there on Kandahar Airfield.
Okay. And I know you shared with me that while you were there, you were managing a lot of the repatriation ceremonies.
Right.
'Cause you're saying basically anything that involved flying something in or out on a plane, you touched a piece of that.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's something that guy Toby actually that I just talked about. It's something that he shared with me once was that one of the things that stuck with him the most, or like one of the most traumatic, if you will, experiences that he had over there. He talked about how like gunfights never bothered him because you were an active participant in a gunfight. Like, yeah, someone
Right.
shot at you and it pissed you off, and then you shot back at them and dealt with it.
Yep.
He said the thing that bothered him the most were the ramp ceremonies. That was the term that he used.
Yep.
I guess that's basically like as they're loading the remains of a guy onto a plane up the ramp, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that stuck with him because there's this sense of helplessness or, you know, not being able to do anything about that situation.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering what that's like from your perspective or from the job that you had, because, you know, that's a guy on the ground who was going out on patrols and stuff like that. That was
Yeah.
his experience. So was there anything like that that really stuck with you?
Yeah, for sure. Like I know, well, we didn't have any Canadian repats when I was there. They were mainly American, mainly Marines and U.S. Army guys. So, you know, my job was to kind of create this sort of atmosphere for the soldiers that would come through and make sure that they knew that we were taking good care of their buddy. You know, that they were walking on, you know, they were in combat with the day before, and now they're still going to go stand on a ramp and carry, you know, their boxes out to the back of the C-17 or whatever craft they're being repatriated on, and make sure there was a lot of dignity and respect there given to their fallen. Because I know from a Canadian perspective, we started the ramp ceremonies. It was our thing, right? MWO Jim Butters, I think, was the guy's name that actually came up with this whole thing at the beginning of the Afghanistan campaign. And it's a Canadian thing that all NATO organizations, you know, militaries now do as a way to pay respect to their fallen before they send them home. So for us, it was extremely important to make sure that we did it right. And there was no issues that way getting these guys back home. But, you know, we have a lot of young privates and you know, I don't know, sergeant majors and all these guys and officers come through and they're upset, they're crying. You know, the process of having guys come in that are wounded on the Blackhawks and landing and going to a Role 3 hospital and then if they were killed in action, being transported from there to Mortuary Affairs, which was an organization that was operated by the Americans in Afghanistan, and liaison and working with them to make sure that, if they were HR remains, meaning that they're just human remains, there's not much left of these guys, that they do their part, they get everything to us, and we make sure that everything gets on the plane, the flags are there, everything's done, and then we work with the unit to get the ceremony going and not rush them off the ramp. But let's face it, you don't want 500 guys standing out on an airfield for too long. It's a big target, and get them out of there as quickly as possible. It was pretty. I can't remember how many in the book I even said that there was, but there was a shit ton of them when I was there. It was every second day or third day we were sending somebody back home. So yeah, it was pretty rough.
I didn't know that that was a relatively like novel thing, the ramp ceremony, or that it wasn't like I don't know. I've only heard about it as just like this was the standard thing that we did, right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
It makes a lot of sense, and it reminds me actually. Just yesterday we were talking inside of our group. This one dude who's an EMT, he was saying how when he was in training, one of the things that his supervisor, whatever, taught him was like, after someone is already deceased, like you get to a scene and there's nothing that you can do. It's like, what's your most important skill set at that point? What's the most important thing you can do? And it's like, start making coffee for the family that's there.
Right. Yeah.
Because now you've transitioned from I'm here to save somebody's life to I'm here to try to make the best out of a fucking horrible situation for everyone else who has to deal with this.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So you spent 6 months over there. What else? What else stuck with you? What else do you feel like were the things that kind of led to you needing to get some help on the way home? So what affected you?
Honestly, you're seeing guys torn up all the time, right? When they come back, right? Missing limbs or dealing with mortuary affairs, and there's body parts, that kind of thing. There's suicide bombers. Like I know a lot of guys that were outside of the wire, and we talked about this a little bit before. Didn't think there was a lot of threat on the airfield itself. Or where I was, but actually to the contrary. I mean, there's rocket attacks every day. There was guys killed in Kandahar when I was there, just wandering around doing their business, right? Indiscriminate bombings and killings and vehicle-borne IEDs, the big propane tank truck, guys come in and they're all strapped up with stuff in trucks. They get out and they fess Mecca and, they start praying to Allah, and next thing you know, they're popping off and blowing up big trucks and shit, right, and killing people. Guys crashing gates, trying to get through. So there's a lot of stress and anxiety around that kind of stuff. But also, I think, too, knowing that being part of an operations cell like I was, when you're talking to airplanes, it could be any kind of attack helicopters, Apaches, any of those guys, they come in and, you have Taliban or anybody shooting at aircraft that are coming in, taking off, and then you give the word, it's like, okay, we'll go take care of business, right? So the guy's like, yeah, roger that, and away he goes, and the next thing you know, he's coming back and he's expended all of his ammunition and he needs to land. He went and took care of business because you told him to go take care of business. So if you think about that from the perspective of a decision maker making decisions about, and I mean, I don't mean I said to somebody, hey, I want you to go take care of these guys and fucking kill them all. But at the end of the day, when you're talking to a pilot and he goes out and does a mission and he comes back, you're part of that cog in the wheel, right? So I think if you're human, you would probably think, well, what part did you play in that, right? So the people that they went out and they were taking care of business with, they all have families too, right? Brothers, sisters, mothers, sons, daughters, whatever. So you're still taking a part in all of that. So it can be stressful. Being away from home isn't a big deal. I mean, I don't find that too tough, especially nowadays, right? I mean, we have instant gratification. There's no more letters like there was when I first deployed, right? That's not how we communicated. You didn't have to worry about, here's your $5 phone card and you got 10 minutes every week that you could call home. You basically pick up your phone and phone home if you want. So it wasn't so bad. Right. But yeah, those kind of things I think way heavy. Plus I think, and and not to ramble on too much, but not being able to do more, I guess, trying to help the guys that are going outside and helping them more when they come back can be stressful. Trying to deal with all their grief and their emotions and all that kind of stuff, it can be complicated. But yeah, those are probably the main things I think that probably caused me a lot of the stress and anxiety. Besides the sniper shooting at you and all that, whatever, it's kind of like, yeah, okay.
Well, yeah, I feel like that's one thing also that we don't fully appreciate is the stress of like the sporadic fire. Like you said, the rocket attacks, the like random mortars, the random sniper shots where it's just like you cannot ever relax or ever feel safe. One of our clients was a truck driver in the Marines, and that's something he talked about. Like nothing bad ever actually happened to him, but it's like every single day that he went out, it's like, is today going to be the day that I hit an IED?
Right.
And just living in that state for 8 months.
Yeah.
That's got to do something to you.
I think it does.
But
I don't think anybody goes there and doesn't come back home different. I don't see how you could, regardless if you're working in a fucking office or you're out, walking through minefields.
Now that guy in particular is a cop, so it's also every single day he's driving around like, hey, is today going to be the day someone shoots at me?
Yeah.
But what you shared about being a cog in the wheel of making those decisions to go send a patrol or fire mission or what have you, was that something you were acutely aware of there while you were doing that job of like, hey, this Apache pilot just killed some dudes. Yeah. Those dudes all had families. Like, that's something that you were thinking about while you were over there executing those missions?
I think, I'd be lying if I didn't say I thought about it. Did I care? I think for anybody that's, making decisions like that, whether, you pull the trigger, you can't take it back, right? Like, once that bullet leaves the chamber, you're done, right? So, I thought about it, but did I care? Yes, but not as much as I cared about sending, my guys home in body bags, you know what I mean? So there's that kind of like it's them or us sort of thing. And you get that luxury, obviously, when you're in a combat zone. That's just the way it is. So you ask any infantry or special ops guy, if it bothers him that he was taking somebody else's life or he was part of that, he would tell you, if he's being honest, yeah, it bothers him, but better him than me, right? So Absolutely. That's the mentality.
Yeah. I wouldn't expect any other mentality. I don't know how you could do that job without that mentality.
No.
Sorry, I'm letting that sink in for a second. Just like what that has to feel like to do that. Man.
It's different, right? Because, you don't ever think when you're like a teenager at home or you're a little kid playing, whatever, you're playing Army Guys or any of that, or you're playing a video game, that it's actually going to become something that's your reality, and something that you're going to actually have to live through. So it's tough. And you just hope that, I know for your guys, sending them back to, Dover Air Force Base, right, to get cleaned up and sent home to their family, you got to think that, sometimes you wonder if it's worth it and, all that kind of stuff. I think we all believed in what we were doing when we were there. Hindsight's 2020, given the state of the way things are now today in Afghanistan. But
I wanted to ask you about that, and you can feel free to sidestep this. Again, don't want to get you in hot water. As still currently employed in this capacity.
Sure.
But how have your feelings on that changed over time? Because again, while you're over there doing that, you have to be able to justify it one way or the other. And I'm sure back then, our general morale was a lot fucking higher for what we were doing.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of disillusionment in general with just like, hey, what the fuck is all of this for? Like, is our government actually, like, do we actually support what our government's doing? And then when you look at the withdrawal from Afghanistan, it's like, well, what the fuck was that all for in the first place?
Right.
And now I forget the dude's name, but on Veterans Day, Donald Trump having some fucking leader of a terrorist organization at the White House. And it's like, okay, what the fuck is this?
Yeah.
So do you care to comment, Scott, or would you respectfully
I won't weigh into your politics down south of the border. I'm not going to weigh into that. Okay. I don't want to piss any of your American viewers or Canadian viewers off by any stretch. And I'm fairly impartial anyway, to be honest. At my age, it's kind of like one of those things, we'll just ride it out till the next election. But I don't know. I was on a radio thing not long ago with a friend of mine, and we were chatting about stuff about our work here and a bit of a few other things. And we did a lot of good over there. Like we're trying to win the hearts and minds of the general population. Trying to get the country back on its feet after years of fighting with Russia during their occupation. Trying to sort out that mess and building schools, roads, trying to get women's rights back on the right track, things like that. And in the process, obviously, there was a lot of destruction in the wake of that. But I think we made a lot of inroads there, and we did a lot of good. Especially the Americans, they put a lot of work and effort and money into that country, and to come home after all that and count up the body bags for everybody, not just Canadians, and see that the balance of power is kind of all falling back into the Taliban's hands is, I'm not going to lie, it's disappointing for sure. And not being a politician and not having any say in how that works, obviously, I wish we had stayed longer, for as long as it takes to finish the job. Because Afghanistan itself as a country, before the Russian occupation, was a beautiful place to go. People actually holidayed there, so to see it all destroyed and then rebuilt and then falling into disarray again, it's tough to see for sure.
The vacationing there thing is interesting because there's now like a Taliban Bureau of Tourism that like makes promotional videos like, hey, come hike in Afghanistan. It's
Yeah,
like,
what the fuck?
the fuck am I looking at right now?
Yeah, that's insane. Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
What caused you to join the military in the first place? You said it was way back in like 91, right? So was that just family tradition? Like that's just what you guys do? Like what drove that choice?
Yeah, I think that's part of it for sure. I was working in the hospitality industry in a hotel at the time. I was making good money and things were fine. But Gulf War kicked off, right? So, you're watching Storm and Norman on TV and these kind of guys kicking the shit out of Iraq and all that kind of stuff. So that was part of it too. So, but I think, if you look behind on the wall, there's this long tradition in my family going back to Sir Francis Drake, like where we've always been involved in the military, one form or another. And it skipped a generation here and there, but my kids are not in the military, so, I guess it's going to die with me that way, but we'll see what happens. But that's mainly it. It wasn't for the money, I can tell you that. I took a pay cut to join. I guess it was to serve, and do something bigger and better to myself rather than working in a nightclub at a hotel, right?
How do you feel about your kids not being in? Like, do you think that's a good thing for them that they're not exposed to, or do you feel like they're missing out on something?
Well, my older son's a cop, so he's in the shit or was in it all the time. Not so much anymore. So there's that inherent sort of risk with that, obviously. My youngest son worked for the RCMP and now works for the Department of National Defense as a civilian public servant, but he's like IT kind of guy, right? And he has dabbled in the reserves here, kind of like, I don't know, like your National Guard sort of thing. So there's still a little bit of it going on. We're still all part of serving, that kind of thing, just in different capacities with different organizations. So, it's not too bad, though. I'm kind of glad they're not in it, like hard into the Army, I guess, because home's where the Army sends you, and it's always the shittiest place and farthest place away, right? So when you got kids, you want them close by, right? So,
that's a good point.
Yeah.
That's awesome. All right, so back to your deployment. So you spent 6 months over there, and then did your deployment just end and you rotated back home, or did you like leave early because you weren't doing well? Like what actually brought you home?
No, actually, so hence the name of the book, The Last Rotation, for me and also for the Canadians. So that's when we kind of, I guess we headed home and kind of took our toys and left. So that was the reason why I came home. It wasn't anything to do with, my mental health or anything like that, or physical ability to stay and do the job. So that's why I got home. Yeah.
This question might be outside the scope of this podcast because maybe you can't speak to the entire Canadian apparatus. I don't think a lot of people realize that the Canadians pulled out in 2011 because there was obviously the shit show of the withdrawal from Afghanistan, and I didn't even really realize that. It was only America that stayed for that long.
Right.
Do you know why that was? Like why the Canadians just, you know, said, all right, we've had enough, we're going home so
I
much
think it's
earlier than the
probably more of a
Americans?
political decision, to be honest with you. I don't
Yeah, of
really know all the
course.
details. I do know that if you do a deep dive into Canadians and when they left, there's dates of 2014, right? So there were elements of the Canadian military in Afghanistan, but as far as rotations go and having large bodies of individuals there, that left when I left. So there would have been guys staying on as observers or those sort of liaison kind of guys, right? To kind of see the job done, but there was no real command element as far as I'm aware of
Right.
in Afghanistan
Right.
after 2011.
All right, so you got home in 2011, and then what happened there? How was that transition for you?
Uh, it was difficult, but I didn't really notice it at the time. My wife and kids, obviously, you kind of put on a headset like what I'm wearing now, watch a movie, you kind of withdrawn a little bit. I wouldn't say it was as bad as you walk into the bar and you got your back against the wall and you're drinking through a glass, with a glass bottom on it because you're worried about somebody coming in to shoot you. Um, Certainly smells and sounds and certain things like that could be triggering at times for sure. I don't know if I told you I was walking downtown Toronto one day with my kids and you see some guys walking up the other side of the street that look like they're dressed in the Afghan garbs and all that kind of stuff, right? And you find yourself walking with your back to the windows and or windows but the walls and that, and you're watching these guys. And yeah, or I don't remember. I hit the dirt one time somewhere. I can't remember where I was, but what I was doing because I thought, you think rocket attack, grenades, whatever. Um, and you were so accustomed to that in theater that it happened all the time.
Yeah.
So it was just your go-to, right? And smells would be triggering, sounds,
Yeah,
yeah,
what
things
kind
like
of
that.
smells? What kind of smells would remind you of that?
I don't know, death. I mean, I don't know if you ever walk downtown in a large city, for example, and you get that wafting smell when you walk over a grate, like in New York City, or what, and you get that
Hot
kind of
garbage.
smell of like shit, and it just smells horrible. That kind
Right,
of
okay.
stuff. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so
Yeah.
you didn't really feel like you weren't doing that great, but there were signs like that. And then I think you shared with me like you saw who's like your flight surgeon or something who was like, "Hey man, you're not doing great." Is that right?
Yeah, I was a flight surgeon. I'd gone in because as an air traffic controller, you go in for your annual checkups and medicals and all that kind of stuff. And they were looking at the questionnaire that I had wrote. How you do? Are you sleeping? Do you have nightmares? All that kind of shit, right? And it doesn't behoove you to lie on any of that kind of stuff for obvious reasons. Because if something goes bad and they go back and check it, then you're held liable for whatever happens, right? So, and she's like, you know what? I think I'm going to send you to the OSI clinic or the Operational Stress Injury Clinic in Ottawa for a diagnosis because you may have PTSD. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm good with that, right? So between the flight surgeon and my wife telling me, hey, you're being an idiot, you need to, not in such, she was really sweet about it, but, you need to get checked out. So
Yeah.
that's what led to that and the diagnosis. And then 2 years in therapy, pretty intensive therapy after that with a psychologist. Yeah. So,
Yeah, so that's what I want to hear about what that journey was like. Because again, man, most of the guys that we talk to have been like medically retired
yeah.
because this stuff kind of happened and they didn't really get much support. They get kind of pushed out of the organization, and then now they're dealing with that transition to civilian life too, on top
Right.
of all of the bullshit. So I almost
Yeah.
feel like in some ways you got lucky that
Yeah.
that was caught and that that was the route that you went down. So what was that recovery like for you? Like when you say 2 years of intensive therapy, what that actually look like?
Well, I was seeing a therapist every week, talking about, you talk about your feelings, you talk about what the occurrences were, you talk about the things that trigger you, what you're doing to cope with it, and they try and give you some coping strategies besides, like a fucking stress ball, like that kind of stuff isn't all that helpful. Medication for sure. I mean, I still am medicated to this day, right? So those sort of things are helpful. But I think actually having the safe space to be able to go and talk to somebody about some of this stuff where there's no stigma attached to the things that I'm saying, I go there in civilian clothes. I leave in civilian clothes, so nobody knows who I am. Is helpful, right? Even though I know that the guy that's waiting after my appointment is a guy I work with, so it was extremely helpful, and I don't want to say I was lucky, but I think I had enough witherall to know that there was something not right, and I was off a little bit, and that I needed to seek help. And I think a lot of guys, and I've been with the infantry battalions and all that kind of stuff, and in artillery, I know what it's like to work and live with a group of 500 or 800 guys that you don't want to show weakness to, that you don't want them to know that maybe you're struggling. So for those kind of guys, there are people absolutely that fall through the cracks in the Canadian military, or any military for that matter. I know a guy from Australia, and I know a couple of Marines down in the States. They fall through the cracks, right? And they don't get the help that maybe that they need. And some of them are kicking and screaming trying to get it, and it's a problem. So I'm not going to sit here and say that, that things are perfect, because they're not. But I think if you have somebody that's helping you and advocating on your behalf for the mental health issues that you have, and the squeaky wheel gets the grease, and you bug them enough, and say, hey, you know what, I'm not feeling well, I'm feeling off. And nowadays it's not so bad. Nowadays it's so much better, in my opinion, than what it was 15, 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah, definitely. Back in 2011, this was not really something that you talked about.
No, and it was becoming a bigger problem, right? Because there was more and more and more guys that, had been dealing with this kind of stuff, right? So it was more commonplace, and the strategies to help them and the systems that the Canadian Armed Forces have to assist people in that regard, with counseling and psychologists, psychiatrists, social workers. There's all kinds of people to help you. But I think the biggest thing is putting your hand up and saying, okay, hold on, I need to figure this out, and then go get the help that you want. That's what you need to start with. And then that just leads to a whole new can of worms as far as Veterans Affairs claims, and what kind of support you're going to get while you're getting healthy, and is it going to lead to a medical release, and if so, what does your rehabilitation looks like? What does your transition to civilian life look like? What kind of programs are there? What kind of money? There's all this shit, right? So it's a lot.
Was that almost like anxiety inducing as you were going through it, of like, is this going to jeopardize my career and my future by getting this help? And like, how honest am I actually on these evaluations? Was stuff like that going through your head?
Hugely stressful. It just exasperated the problem, right? So you're dealing with the PTSD and all the other shit that goes along with that, and the triggers, and then you have the stressors of, are they going to kick my ass out of the military?
Yeah.
We get paid well, right? So you ask a pilot. I was grounded. I wasn't allowed to work right in the tower anymore, so I couldn't contribute that way. So that just added to it. They put you on these temporary categories, so you can't work, and these are your medical employment limitations, and yada, yada, yada. So that was tough to go through. But for me, it led to, a permanent category where, I got healthy, I got better. I'm at the point where I could deploy tomorrow if I wanted to. But I have to see a shrink first to make sure that I'm okay before I could go, but I still could. So I was one of the lucky ones that way, so you could use the term lucky there. But for some guys, it's so bad, they just can't fucking deal with it. So they can't go to work. They can't, put on their boots. They're abusing alcohol, drugs, whatever. And yeah, it leads to their demise in the forces at some point. So yeah, it's tough for those guys for sure.
I was going to ask about your occupation during that time. So were you able to do any kind of work, or you're just kind of sitting on the sidelines, just going to therapy? That was your job.
Yeah, going to therapy and doing paperwork, right? And having my paperwork checked 5 times to make sure that I wasn't fucking it up, man, or whatever.
Again, I feel like that fucks with people, like you said. So now, okay, I can't do this job that I like doing. I'm not with all of my friends, and now I feel useless. And
right. Yeah.
No fault to them, but everyone else, like, their life continues. Like your unit, they still got training to do, they still got missions to do, and you're just kind of sitting there like, okay, bye guys. Like,
I think the good thing for me at this point in my career is that because I've been through that, and when I talk to guys all the time that are going through that, I can relate to it, and hopefully they can look at my situation as maybe the light at the end of the tunnel for them. That, hey, you know what? Yeah, so I got to do therapy for a year or two or three, but that doesn't mean that it's the end of my life or my career, and that they can maybe see an end to it all, right? And hopefully get back in the game. So I try to do that, as advocate for them as much as I can. But
Yeah, well, that was something else I wanted to highlight, kind of your role now and how you try to use that role. One of the things that we say a lot in our program is that we should heal out loud so that other people don't have to suffer in silence.
right,
Working on making that into a
I
T-shirt
love
right
it.
now.
Yeah, it's a good catchphrase for sure.
Yeah. So, your remind me, what is your actual position right now? Or like, what is your rank right now?
So I'm a major, and I'm in charge of a beautiful museum here in Kingston as the officer commanding the museum. I guess it's your step out of the military job. So I'm not
Okay.
involved in any operations or anything. So yeah,
But where I was going with this is like as a major, I feel like you're trying to set that example of like, hey, this is something that we talk about. Getting help is actually something that we do. Like that actually is part of our culture now,
yeah,
right? So how do you try to instill that in people? Is it just a matter of talking about it openly like this, or like
yeah.
how do you actually go about that?
100%. Actually, it wasn't. We had the veterans. I think that we talked about the veterans ombudsman here not long ago.
Mm-hmm.
She was here, and I stand up in a room filled with two-star generals and say, "Yeah, my name's Major Oikle. I have PTSD, and if you ever need help with a veterans claims or you want to know anything about the process for getting help, you can come see me in my office at any point in time." And I'm open to it. I have no issues with it. And my last job, I spent a lot of my time helping soldiers, navigate the system and how it works and where they need to go, what they need to do, what forms they need, et cetera, to make their lives easier with less anxiety for them. So, and I still do that social media, right, through the book, through whatever means I can. Whoever will listen until they tell me to shut up, I'll just keep trying to help, right?
No,
So
man,
that's it.
I like that a lot, and maybe I've done a bad job of like painting this bad picture of all the other people that we've heard from who didn't get that help.
Yeah.
Because one of the things this has been on my mind a lot. We just had something fairly tragic happen with like somebody that we've worked with in the past who seemed by all external accounts to be doing great, and
Yeah.
like inside they were still battling quite a few demons.
Right.
And everybody always talks about like, hey, reach out to your buddies, right? Like text your buddy, check in on your buddies.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's anything that anybody could have done differently to give this guy an opportunity to talk about what was going on and to
Yeah.
get the help. So
Yeah.
it's like, okay, reach out to your buddy, but also open up when your buddy reaches out to you, right?
Sure.
So
Yeah.
I feel like you're actually doing a good job of creating that example of like, hey, I did get the help that I needed. And look, it's
Yeah.
actually going well for me now.
Yeah.
So you should also allow yourself to get the help.
Yeah,
Because I
I
think
wish guys would do that because it leads to unnecessary suicides. It leads to all this other sort of stuff that unfortunately happens to a lot of guys that they just feel helpless, right? Hopeless, and that nobody's going to help them, and they don't know how to help themselves, so they just don't think it's worth it anymore. So I challenge you and your podcast that if you ever run across any Canadians in Canada on your podcast or otherwise that need help, tell them to email me or call me at any point
okay,
in
I
time,
will.
and I will certainly be
I will,
happy to
man.
help them for sure. Absolutely.
I'm gonna take you up on that, Scott.
I hope you do,
Because
for sure.
it would have been easy. It would have been easy for you, man, when your wife is telling you like, "Hey, you need to get help." It would have been easy for you to say like, "Nah, you don't know what you're talking about. I'm fine." It would
Right.
have been easy when that flight surgeon was like, "I think that you should go see these people at the OSI clinic." It would have been easy
Yeah.
for you to say like, "No, I don't need that," or to just
Yeah.
lie on all the paperwork and pretend
Yeah.
like everything was fine.
Yeah.
So I feel like you actually deserve a lot of credit for like accepting the help that other people tried to connect you to. Because I think that's the piece that's missing sometimes is, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink, right? So
Yeah,
you can
you're
lead
right,
someone with PTSD to all the resources in the world,
Mhm.
but you can't make them actually open up and accept that
No.
help for themselves.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you. And you're right. Like, I mean, I can order a soldier to go to the mental health unit, and he or she will go, and I can get them in the door into the office, but I can't make them do anything else, right? It's up to them, right? So, yeah, identifying that you need some help is important. And I think the guys that suffer from PTSD or they have operational stress injuries. I think a lot of them maybe, and I'm going out on a limb here, know that there's something off. But
yeah.
I guess they just don't know where to turn or what to do or to take that first step is the issue, right? Maybe, but I don't know.
I think, people turn to suicide when they don't think that there's any other viable options. Like when
Right.
they don't
Right.
think that there's any possibility that it gets better. So again,
Yeah.
I applaud you as like, here's Scott. Like he
Yeah.
got help. He's
Yeah.
doing
Come
better.
see me anytime, for sure.
Yeah. All right. So what led to you actually writing the book? Like, was this part of it? Because it's not
Um,
just about the mental health, right? It's really just
no.
like a diary of events that happened over there. So
Yeah,
why did you actually write that?
I think I had a BlackBerry because they told me I needed one, so they get a hold of me. And I just every day, at the end of the day or throughout the day, whatever, would put shit in the BlackBerry and I just hit save and I just kept doing that and doing that. And then I got home in 2011 and when I had to hand in the phone because they wanted it back, I just downloaded the file and I put it in a Word document and it sat there for years. And I didn't really think too much about it. I think it was a little bit therapeutic to do over there. It also helped me keep a bit of my sanity, what happened today, what went on,
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because all the systems we were using over there were top secret. So you don't put your personal shit in there. So this was just a way of me logging what I did. Because I deployed before on peacekeeping mission in Cyprus in 92. And I kind of was looking for stuff a few years back because I like genealogy and doing my family history, and I didn't really have a lot. So I knew going to Afghanistan that I would do it. So I did that, and then I left it, man, like for years. I didn't touch it. I didn't do anything. And anyway, I won't go into. I don't want to name drop or anything, but so I found out through the genealogy that I was doing. That I was related to Margaret Atwood. So I thought, hey, this is kind of cool, right? So I wrote her a letter and said, hey, and I sent her some stuff to prove that I wasn't some quack, right? That was, stalking her or something like that. And she sent me a book and said, hey, cuz, how are you, sort of thing. Nice to meet you, whatever. And that kind of gave me the inspiration to finish the book because I thought, you know what, I should probably do that. Maybe writing is in my family. So most of the work was done already in the Word document, so I just finished it and I self-published it on Amazon because that's the easiest way to go because I don't think, honestly, anybody else would touch this with a 10-foot pole. So,
Why?
I don't know. It's I think writing is one of those things nowadays that is easy to do because you can just fucking chat GPT whatever you want and it'll spit it out for you. But sitting down and actually writing something out is tough to do on the best of days. And I just didn't think that there was. It's such a small niche, right? Like, I mean, if you look up war diaries online or Google it or whatever, there's not a lot out there. The book's only 100 pages long and it's got some photos in it, so it's probably more like 90 pages of reading. And it's an unaltered version of what I had on my phone, right? So it's not really something that a lot of people are going to read. Maybe to fall asleep at night, maybe. But so I didn't think it was worth the ass pain to try and go out to all these publishers and say, "Hey, I got this memoir. Do you want to, do whatever?" So I didn't bother. I just self-published it on my own. It's easier.
How was that process of actually going back and compiling it? 'Cause I guess there wasn't much like new writing to be done, right? But I'm sure you edited things, and I have to imagine just rereading things, a whole lot of memories would come back
Oh
to you,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So
It
what
was
was that
hard.
process like?
Yeah, it was hard because I hadn't forgot all of it, but there were certain things I'm like, oh fuck yeah, I forgot we did that, right? Or I forgot we had that many repatriations and that many rocket attacks, and you know, I forgot that we did that on this day, or whatever the case might be. But no, there wasn't a lot. I kind of left. I did change names of people. I did change the name of operations and things like that, even though the mission's over, just to keep it, the operational security of everything, and just to be fair, I changed some of that. But other than that, it's not changed at all. It's raw. It's exactly the way that it was when I wrote it, with the spelling errors, with syntax errors. I left it all in because I don't care. I just left it the same. So I did write intros for each chapter. So that was something that I had to sit down and figure out. But that was the process. It probably took 6 months, 8 months to do, so it wasn't too hard.
How are the chapters broken up? If it's just like a chronological sequence of events.
Exactly the way that it unfolded, yeah. I started doing the diary on paper before we left, so I have some of the pre-deployment training, that kind of stuff, what we did, where we went. And then the deployment, and then we talk about the deployment, obviously, throughout the whole thing. And then I didn't really get into a lot of the post-deployment stuff, but there is a little bit in there. So, but yeah, it's all chronological order, exactly the way it all kind of laid out when we were there.
Do you have plans for any other books? Because now you'd have to actually write something.
I do, but it's not exactly. It's not in the same format. It's not a war diary, but I'll leave that for now. I am working on the audiobook for this right now, so trying to
Cool.
record that. Because I've had some people say, hey, you know what, I'd like to listen to it with some sound effects and shit like that. So
That'd be cool.
I'm about halfway through that. So I was hoping to have it out mid-December, but I think it's probably going to be mid-January because my editor's not here right now.
Recording stuff is harder than people think, man. And I fully support you doing that. Inside our program, we always try to deliver information as like a video or audio or written or just show up to a call and talk about it. Because like people have fucking brain injuries and PTSD and ADHD and brain fog. It's like asking someone to just read something could be a big ask for somebody with like visual impairments and stuff like that.
Right.
So I like that you're doing that. I think that's cool.
Yeah, I'm going to do it for sure.
All right, so what else are you working on now? Because you talked to me, the last time that we chatted, you were talking to me about the veterans ombudsman, which is still a crazy word to me. But I know that you're doing some work to kind of advocate for policy change with veterans and specifically some stuff with like their family members and when there's substance abuse and stuff like that. So what's that work like for you? Like what's the actual scope of that in terms of like the policy change and the advocation and stuff? And what are you kind of focusing your time on these days?
So I know there's some policy changes coming out, and I wasn't directly involved in them, but mopping up some of the misdemeanors about, you know, who, for example, is entitled to certain things, right? Typically, it's always the member, the military person that can get all the help, but now it's being extended to family members as well. So, which is a good thing because those kind of services in Canada cost money. So, you know, so your kids can go in and see a counselor, right? And it would be covered by the department, right? At least that's my understanding. Working with the Operational Stress Injury Center here in Kingston with a return to duty program for members that, you know, not just with mental health issues, but maybe they broke their leg and they can't work very well. So trying to get them back in the workforce and working with those kind of veterans as well. We do our veterans coffee here once a month. So all the old vets, young vets, all the vets, they come out and have coffee and sticky buns or whatever. We shoot the shit for a while. They get to meet, some young serving members and that kind of thing, and they get to tell their war stories. So that kind of thing is huge. It's good. What else are we doing? I guess that's really about it. The ombudsman was here to talk to veterans about policies and stuff like that they're working on, but that's a whole different episode on a podcast, I think. And I'm not really in the right headspace to get into that. But there are a lot of small things that we're trying to advocate for, especially for the veterans.
For the veterans coffee thing, is that structured in any way? Like, is there any like, hey, today we're going to talk about this topic, or is it literally just they come and just like bullshit? Because I actually think there's a lot of value in that.
There is. I mean, I'll open up with a welcome to, December 9th, Veterans Coffee. You know, it's nice to see you. We talk a little bit about the dates in history, for the month of December, other than the fact that it's Christmas, right? And some of the things that have gone on in the military, if there's important strategic dates or any of that kind of stuff. So we talk a little bit about that. But honestly, those sort of intros are like 10 minutes long, and they just want you to shut the hell up so that they can, gab and do whatever they're doing and give them an opportunity just to, do it. We also open it up online. So veterans who, can't get out of the house for whatever reason, or they're in an old folks home or whatever, but they want to dial in somehow, then they still have the opportunity to take part there as well. So we do that.
I like that a lot. And I like the mix of like young dudes who are still serving, talking to the older dudes
Yeah,
who are retired.
yeah, it's
That's
awesome.
another thing, man. I think just the value of community is very understated.
Yeah.
And if you just tell somebody, like, yeah, you should have some community, or you ask them, do you have some people that you talk to? It can
Hmm.
almost feel more isolating when they don't,
Oh, for
especially this
sure.
time of year, man. Like the
Yeah,
holiday season, right? It's like you're
yeah,
supposed to be fucking happy and surrounded by loved ones. And if
exactly.
you're sad and alone, it just makes you more acutely aware of that.
Yeah. Oh, for
So
sure. Exactly.
having a space to go is awesome.
Yeah, it's great.
That's that's definitely something that we've seen too. Is like having building this community that we have now is almost an afterthought to me, honestly, when we started doing it.
Yeah,
And that has proven to be the most valuable aspect of what we do to so many people.
yeah,
Just knowing that, 3 times a week there's an opportunity just to get together with some other people who understand you and just kind of bullshit and
yeah.
fit in somewhere, and know that other people understand what you're dealing with. So I,
Oh,
I
for
love that
sure.
you're doing that, man. I think that's
Yeah.
awesome.
No, and I appreciate what you guys are doing for the vets too, especially our Canadian guys. Well, everybody for that matter, but they need it as much as anybody else. So it's nice to see they have you guys that they can reach
We
out to. So it's good.
I joked the other day because I was like, most of the recent clients we've had signing up have been Canadians, and I was like, it's surprising to me because the Canadian dollar is shit right now. So I'm like,
Yeah.
this is 30% more expensive for you guys, and they're
Yeah.
like, yeah, but we're 30% more fucked up right now, 30% more depressed at the government. So I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, that
That's
that
true.
math checks out.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Scott,
Awesome.
is there anything that we haven't hit on yet that you feel like is important to highlight? Just like your current work, the book, your experience. Like, what else do you want people to hear about?
No, I just want people to know that there's light at the end of the tunnel, right? I mean, checking out may not be the option. Maybe there's other things, and that they need to reach out and get the support that they deserve. And if they don't know how to do that, that they reach out to guys like you or me, or like you said, their friends and colleagues and those sort of things, because people love them and care about them, and they want to see them do well. At the end of the day, and try to read through all the bullshit, right? There's, I know there's a lot of paperwork involved with getting help and that kind of stuff for sure, and that's hard to navigate. But if I can do it, anybody can do it. So they just gotta know that it's going to be okay, and that we're here to help. So it's
Beautiful.
important.
Scott, I definitely will take you up on your offer. I'm going to start putting you in touch with some folks.
Cool. Yeah, I'd like that. That's good, for sure.
Beautiful. All right, man. Thank you so much for your time, Scott. I really appreciate it.
Thank
I'll
you,
put some
Dave.
links where everybody can check out you, your work, and your book. And well, I'm sure we'll see a very negligible bump in book sales after this. But I
Okay, there
appreciate
isn't
you
that
coming
much
on, buddy.
anyway. So even if it's one or two a month, I'm a happy guy. It's all good. I'm
Awesome.
not in it for the money, so it's cool. Thanks, Dave. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. All right, you guys, that's a wrap for this episode of the Plant Medicine for PTSD podcast. Hopefully, you enjoyed hearing some of Scott's stories, learning from his perspectives, and I would definitely encourage you to go check out his book, The Last Rotation: Afghanistan, a War Diary. Thank you very much for being here. Please do not hesitate to reach out to us with any questions. I actually really love hearing from you guys who listen to this podcast. If nothing else, it's a nice little confidence boost for me that somebody actually listens to this shit. So if that is you, thank you very much. Until next time, peace out. Take care of yourself. I will see you on the next episode.